Death is horrifying, and the loss of a loved one devastating. I remember losing my dad after a 4-year battle with cancer, and the difficulty of letting go. Fortunately, it had 59 years to live on the planet, and I had been able to say the things I wanted to say, to ask the things I wanted to ask of him. And it helped in the aftermath to be able to work through the grief. In contrast, a few years earlier, I'd gotten a call between my first and second years of medical school that my older brother had ended his life at his own hand. He and I were just 18 months apart and had not had the best of relationships. And so that tragic news was especially difficult to process because I had to let go not only of what we had together as brothers, but I had to grieve what we would never have as brothers. If you're dealing with the loss of a loved one, it is so difficult to process the pain that you feel when someone you love is no longer in your realm of experience. Certainly, they will always remain in your heart, but to let go of that um, tangible gift of their presence is so very difficult. Each of us grieves in our own unique way, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, but typically we go through various emotions and phases as we grieve. Some of us are simply in shock in the beginning, and sometimes this is a gift to allow us just to keep doing the things we need to do to survive, to be able to continue walking and talking and breathing, to get the practical things done in the aftermath of a death. But when the shock wears off, we often will experience a range of other feelings and emotions. There was a book written called On Death and Dying by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she identified various aspects of grieving. She identified things like denial, where we don't want to believe that it's true, or bargaining, where we want to bargain with God to spare the person's life or bring them back. We may go through intense sadness or depression. We may go through anger and rage. And then finally, she suggests that the goal of our grieving is to come to a place of acceptance. It's a process, to be sure, and a lot of studies of grief indicate that even at best, it's usually a 2-year process for significant loss. It can be prolonged, especially if we get into a place of depression and despair. And if you or someone you know is dealing with grief and they become incapacitated and non-functional, if they are sleeping all the time or not sleeping at all, eating too much or not at all, not able to concentrate or think clearly or remember, losing sense of connection with other people, and losing interest in pleasure and things they would usually enjoy. If there's a loss of sense of value and worth, the person detaches from life and even has thoughts of death and suicide, those are all signs that professional help may be needed. But even if we don't need professional help in our grieving, it is very clear that while grieving is very unique and individual, we need others to be with us in that process. We've heard the phrase that we need a shoulder to cry on, and we need people who are sturdy, who are steady, who will continue to reach out to us and reassure us that they are available if we wish to talk, but perfectly content if we want to sit in silence. We need people who will bring us food or offer us some tangible help with practical matters. We need people who are willing to encourage us to go for a walk, to get out of the house, to go out for dinner or eat a meal. We need that tangible support. We do not need people to try to cheer us up or give us reasons why bad things happen. These efforts are almost always ineffective and sometimes will make things much worse. By trying to minimize suffering, we can actually add to it. Everyone who's in pain needs someone to be empathetic, to let them know by their facial expression, by the tone of their voice, by their words and their actions, that they get us. They see where we are and they honor our suffering as real and valuable. If we don't feel seen, if we don't feel understood, we will often double down in our pain and suffering. It's very important to be with someone in a way that generates a sense of love and acceptance while encouraging them to take steps toward getting back to good. I encourage people who are suffering to journal. I think it's a bad idea to avoid all of your negative feelings and just throw yourself into life. I also think it's a bad idea to just sit in negative feelings 24/7. But journaling allows you a couple of times a day to sit with your feelings, to try to write them out. As we try to process our feelings on paper, we get them out, where we can see them more clearly, where we can see what we are doing well and what we might do better. I'm a big fan of getting a journal for the purpose of writing your thoughts and feelings about the one who is gone, writing down sweet memories and being able to savor those moments that you had together. Also being able to acknowledge the real pain that is left. It's often sometimes confusing when we feel angry at the person who's gone, especially if they didn't choose to go. If they did choose to end their life, I think it's especially vital that you ask yourself, can I forgive this person for what they did? When Jesus was dying on the cross, he prayed a simple prayer for those who hurt him. He said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And that's the prayer that I've prayed for my brother many times, because I do believe that he was in a great deal of pain and suffering and did not realize the impact on himself and others when he ended his life. The people who put Jesus on the cross may end up in hell, but not because of what they did to him. He prayed, and I believe his Father heard him. So if you've been hurt by someone who died because they didn't take care of themselves, or they behaved foolishly, or drove drunk, or took some other action that ended their life, consider praying that prayer. God, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. We know that we don't get to be the judge of others, but we do know that we can offer mercy to those who have hurt us. We can offer forgiveness to those who have wounded us. We can also offer that same forgiveness to ourselves when someone is gone and we have regrets, we feel remorse, we feel a temptation to think if only or what if. It's very painful to think that maybe I could have done something. I know that when I visited my brother 2 weeks before his death, I noticed that his refrigerator was empty and didn't really click that his wife and daughter were not anywhere to be seen. It turns out that their relationship was on the skids. And when I visited him, I didn't pick up on the depth of his depression. That event, that circumstance, has made me more mindful of my interactions with other people and made me more courageous in pressing in with people who may be suffering. I want my brother's death to count in my life, and the way I live my life, I believe, is more compassionate and more courageous because of his life and my desire to honor it. if you're dealing with a death of someone that you love, know that you can not only survive it, but you can reclaim life again. You can reclaim joy again. Will you ever stop missing the person that you've lost? Probably not. Will there never be any sadness or pain associated with that person? Probably not. But if they were able to come back from the grave and speak to you, my conviction is that they would tell you that they want you to think only good thoughts of them, that they want you to forgive yourself for anything that you've done or failed to do, to forgive them for things that they did or failed to do. Forgiveness is a beautiful thing, but sometimes very tough to forgive others, and sometimes tougher to forgive ourselves. Sometimes it's even hard to forgive God for not stopping the evil that occurs on the earth and stopping unfortunate events that rob us of life. All of us have a choice in how we navigate the aftermath of a loss. All of us need help to do it well. So I just want to encourage you to keep walking, to get back up when the waves of grief knock you down, to hold out for that hope that I believe is available for all of us, that God offers us as we walk through the dark valley. It's my experience in my life that it's in those dark valleys of suffering that I have found God to be especially precious, and that through those dark times I have gained the most in wisdom and strength and compassion and courage, and that it's equipped me then to be with other people in their suffering. As I said in the beginning, death is terrible, and there'll be one day when death will be no more. But in the meantime, when it affects us, when it affects those we love, let us be committed to walking through that, to emptying our grief so that our emotional reservoir does not get crowded out by our pain, but that we release it and breathe in again of the comfort, the peace, and the joy that we need to live life to the full.